Hello, Forecaster here again. It's been a while since the last video, mostly because I've been busy writing the ID Resolver website, and I apologize. But today we're going to talk about intersections. And here you can see a simple one-lane three-way intersection. And this is pretty simple. We have a Y track here, and we have basically you can go either way, three ways. You can't go straight across because the Y track here will not does not allow carts to go straight across. They will go in here from both directions, and from this direction they will go either, depending on the switch. And yeah, of course these switches are manual. You can just as easily put routing switches here. It's a pretty simple intersection. It would have to be a little more complicated if you wanted carts to go be able to go straight across, or in both directions. You could replace this with a switch track to have it go in one direction all the time, or in the other direction all the time, or straight across. Or you would have to expand it a little bit. Now, over here, we have a four-way one-lane intersection, where if we are coming from this direction, we will be able to go towards the red exit here, or the lime green exit here, or we will be able to go straight across to the green exit. And if we were to come from this direction, we would have the choice of the dark green exit, the blue exit, or straight across towards the lime green exit. And of course all of these switches can be replaced with routing switches. Then over here we have a two-lane three-way intersection. So we have the lime green, and red. So if you were to come from this direction on this side, we can go towards the lime green exit, or we can keep ahead going towards the red. We come from this direction, we can turn towards the lime green exit, or go straight ahead towards dark green. And from this direction we can turn towards the green exit, or go straight ahead and turn towards the red exit. And when all the trains will or locomotives will always go on this side, and in this direction. This is pretty simple. Now next we have a four-way two-lane intersection, which is slightly more complicated. If we're coming from this direction, we can turn towards the green exit here, and would then go across this track to here, then come here. From here we have the choice of red, or we can keep going and hit the blue intersection, or blue exit, and would be directed to here. Or we can go straight across, passing by all these switches, and we would come out here in this case. And I like when things are symmetrical, so all these quadrants are look exactly the same. The only difference is the switches, which, as you can see, have colors on them for to easily tell where they go. And of course, you can replace all of these switches with routing switches. Now, the building an intersection is pretty easy. What is slightly more difficult is keeping trains from colliding within them. Here we have some signals and some signal receiver and signal controller boxes. We have a detector for each exit, and we have a set of signal interlock boxes. And you probably haven't seen these before. They were added a few versions ago in Railcraft, and we also have some inputs here for the signals. And as you can see, when one of the locomotives enter the intersection, the signal, this signal turns to a color, either yellow or red, depending on which signal it is. And we have the interlock boxes, which will they will all display the highest signal that are input by a source like the signal receiver box. So when a locomotive enters the intersection, all the receiver boxes that control these boarding tracks will turn off, because this will turn all these away from green. It will not allow either of them to be green. And this is connected to this controller here, and these take input from the signals. We have these two, and these two are connected to these receivers here. And over here, we have essentially the same setup, but for the four-way intersection. And I've illustrated the connections with wool. And as you can see, we have 4 interlock boxes because we have 4 exits. But it works essentially the same way. We have a detector, and for example, for this blue, next to the detector, we have a controller box. The controller box is linked to this interlock box using a signal tuner. So the aspect goes from there to here. And I've changed the default settings of this. So the default aspect is red. Normally it's reversed. So you want to invert this, so the default aspect is red and the redstone aspect is green. So when this receives a redstone signal, it will output green. The green aspect will be sent to this interlock box, and if this interlock box is not being overridden by this, the green aspect will go through. That interlock box is in turn linked to this receiver box, so it'll forward the green aspect to this receiver box, will output a redstone signal to this boarding track, which will allow the train or locomotive that sits on it to enter the intersection. Now, another feature of the interlock boxes is, as you can see, all of these four are connected to each other, as well as to this receiver box. And only one of them can be anything other than red at a time. So as you can see, if we observe them, three of them are always red. This will ensure that only one of these tracks are activated at any time. So when as you can see, these two locomotives were waiting at the same time to enter the intersection, but only one of them got in, because only this track activated, and when the locomotive entered the intersection, this activated again, same setup here, and forced all of these to go red, which would lock down all of the waiting locomotives or trains. And as you can see, there's each of these work exactly the same. So, and this is a very, very simple, not a lot of components, way of controlling an intersection and making sure that only one vehicle is in the intersection at any time. And this will help prevent collisions. Now, these branches here in this four-way intersection are kind of long, and they, when something, if this were to turn here and enter this and then cross this block here and then go in here, all the signals will show clear, because this is an unguarded stretch of tracks. And so if you want, and you probably should, if it's especially if it's a heavily trafficked intersection, you would want to put signals on these lines, and you could use a relay box in the corner to make a signal block, and you would then have to add another bunch of these and connect them so they would link ultimately to this, to make sure that the entire intersection is being watched. Currently, since I only have 3 locomotives going through, and currently none of them are turning a lot, it's not really a problem. So that's pretty much it. I suppose I could show you how to guard this. If we get a signal block relay, actually let us take one of these, and we will put a red ticket. As you can see, all of these are routing switches, and I've plugged in the correct Now, as you could see just there, the locomotive turned in here. And as soon as it was off the signal block here, we had another locomotive enter from here. Now, if this had been a long train with a lot of carts after it, it might have blocked this section off when this locomotive was going towards it. And that might not be something you'd want to happen. So we're going to put a signal here. Then we are going to put a signal relay there and put the track back on top. And then we're going to put a signal there. Then we're going to link these, create a block like so. So now we have a signal block here that is covering this entire track all the way here to here, or here actually, because this section is already covered. So we have covered all of these previously uncovered pieces of track. Now we want to include this in our system here. We need a controller box surrounded by receiver boxes like this. Then we will take this and something you can consider when creating this, which I really haven't done, is the direction of the lanes. In this case, this direction. For this signal, this would be the faraway signal, and on this side, this is the faraway signal. So what you could do is make sure to connect the faraway signal to here, to make sure the colors are correct, because as you can see, these two turn yellow sometimes, and sometimes they turn red, and some turn. So here I've taken these two and linked them over there. So when a locomotive is going in this direction, this will turn yellow. So these will show yellow, and so will these. If I had picked the faraway one over there and linked it over here instead, I would get a more consistent signal where it would show red. And the same thing applies to this new block here, where I picked this one. If I had picked this one, we would get the same situation where it would show yellow most of the time. So I've linked the block to this one. Now, these can have two inputs. I can only have one of these signal controller boxes linked to a receiver box. So we will have to add a controller box here and put two receiver boxes. Then we will link this to here, and this to here, and this to here. We'll remove these excess ones for now because I do not need them. So now you can see we have some additional input slots here, where we could make, currently I have only surveyed one of these. Well, we have 3 more, so we would need 3 more receiver boxes, which we have room for right here. But now, if we set this to idle a little bit, and set this to destination red, it went anyway. So now, you can see when this is in this section, the locomotives over there didn't get to enter the intersection. And now all of the locomotives are on the red-blue line. So we're going to change this to green. And catch one of you and change you to green. Have you come in here. Okay, that one got into the intersection just after this one, which is a little unfortunate. Going to change you back to red, and then let you go, and you will go in there. And that locomotive over there had to wait until that had cleared this block as well. Now you could also survey these tiny pieces of tracks here, but normally, in most cases, I don't think they would cause much of a problem, especially if you have long enough trains that when the locomotive is here, there are still carts in this block, and when the locomotive these carts leave this and come in here, the locomotive has already come out here. So unless you have really short trains, these small pieces won't really be a problem. These are more problematic because they are so long, so you would have to have really long trains to cover them, which isn't really something you would want to do, because long trains can cause problems on their own. And obviously, here I'm using boarding tracks. You will want to make sure to use train boarding tracks if you have carts after your locomotives, which you would probably have. Otherwise, when the locomotive enters the signal block, this will turn off again immediately and catch the cart after the locomotive, and then everything will get stuck because this won't release the cart because the block is occupied, which would lock everything up, and no trains would enter the intersection anymore. And that should be it. The next video should be about stations, and both passenger stations and goods stations with a few ways of loading and unloading things using loaders and unloaders, of course. So we'll see you in the next video.